All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Women's true nature, borderline personality disorder, describes the female psyche, BPD, histrionic, stunted moral development. Written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. The walk, the wreck, and the weakness of women. How modern men are failing the ancient tests of endurance, fatherhood, and fearlessness. And why the West will not survive unless they return to the hard truths of nature, reason, and manhood. I once watched a man cry because his GPS died halfway up a mountain. Not from fear, not from injury. No, he wept because he needed the app to tell him he was still alive. 12 miles in, sweat-soaked and fully functional. He broke down not from exhaustion, but from the unbearable weight of uncertainty without validation. His girlfriend dumped him that night. Not for being weak, though he was, but for being expensive. Emotionally bankrupt, a liability disguised as a boyfriend. That hike was her litmus test. Can he endure? Can he lead when the map burns? Or is he just another emotionally neutered boy raised on participation trophies and Disney princesses who thinks love means constant reassurance while she tantrums her way through life? Let me tell you something the universities won't. The female psyche is not a sanctuary. It's a selection mechanism. Women don't want partners, they want proof. And if you flinch, whine, or look for a therapist mid-crisis, she'll discard you like expired meat. This isn't cruelty, it's biology. For 200,000 years, women selected men who could walk 40 miles with a broken rib, hunt for days in the rain, and stare down a lion without blinking. Today, we medicate boys for having testosterone, call it ADHD, and wonder why men can't survive a bad Yelp review. The nuclear family is dead, not because men failed it. Engels killed it on purpose. He wrote the playbook: destroy the father, collapse the family, make the state the new husband and children the state's property, and Firestone. She didn't hide it. She celebrated the idea of artificial wombs and the abolition of the reproductive role. Now Silicon Valley billionaires fund ectogenesis labs while kindergarten boys are told their penises are optional. Meanwhile, 24 million American kids grow up without a father, and we act surprised when cities burn. Here's a fact they bury. 70% of juveniles in state custody come from fatherless homes. Not broken homes, fatherless. Because a man who doesn't show up can't teach duty, honor, silence, or spine. And when men do show up, society arrests them. Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old kid with a rifle, stopped looters from torching a hardware store. CNN called him a domestic terrorist. But when a woman stabs her husband in bed and claims abuse, she gets a TED Talk. This isn't justice, it's genocentric theater. Men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide, yet we're told we're toxic for not crying in group circles. We are 94% of workplace deaths. Miners, roofers, loggers, soldiers, but no one runs PSAs about male workplace oppression. Why? Because your sacrifice is expected, your silence is demanded, and your virtue, it's punished. They call stoicism repression, courage, aggression, and leadership patriarchy. But I'll tell you the truth, buried in the ruins of Athens and Rome. Civilization is not built by the sensitive. It is held together by the silent. The man who doesn't panic when the plane shakes. The father who works a double shift after his wife leaves him. The cop who walks into the active shooter's line of fire. These men are not celebrated. They are stigmatized. Why? Because a man who can endure, stabilize, provide, and protect cannot be controlled. And a controlled man is the only kind the leftist feminist state will tolerate. So they'll test you on the trail, in the crisis, in the courtroom. They'll set traps with tears, false accusations, emotional blackmail. They'll reward the weak and punish the strong because strength reminds them of what they've destroyed. But you're not here to please them. You're here to outlast them. To walk farther, stand straighter, and suffer in silence like the oak while the willow screams in the wind. This book isn't comfort, it's combat. And if you're still reading, you're already winning. The crucible of motion, testing the male frame in physical trial. A man is not measured by his strength, but by his will to endure when strength fails. I heard that from a Delta Force instructor after a recruit quit, not because his legs gave out, but because his phone died. GPS failed. No signal, no map. No problem, right? Wrong. This highly trained, physically fit candidate, college educated, CrossFit certified, probably voted for Bernie, started hyperventilating like a teenage girl who missed her Instagram story deadline. He dropped out not from exhaustion, but from existential panic at being unplugged. Let me be clear. Modern men aren't weak because they don't lift enough. They're weak because they've been unplugged from reality. They've been raised in a genocentric daycare state where feelings trump feet, where emotional validation is dispensed like participation trophies, and where the mere suggestion of discomfort is treated as trauma. This isn't evolution, it's devolution, and it's being weaponized by feminist ideology to castrate the male spirit. Our bodies didn't evolve for spin classes or TikTok dance challenges. Human males are persistence hunters, homo cursor. Anthropologists like Lieberman and Bramble proved it. We have sweat glands, nuptial ligaments, spring-like arches in our feet, and slow-twitch muscle fibers designed for hours of motion. Prey animals sprint, we outlast. Wildebeest runs fast, but after 10 miles in the African sun, it collapses from heat stroke. We keep going. Our ancestors tracked animals for days, bleeding, blistered, starving, until the prey dropped from exhaustion. That is the male frame, not brute force, but relentless forward motion under suffering. And now we have men who collapse psychologically when their Apple Watch runs out of battery. The CDC reports a 40% decline in physical activity among boys aged 10 to 18 since 2000, while anxiety and depression rates have tripled. You think that's coincidence? It's not, it's causation. When you replace outdoor play with screen time, when you medicate boys for having testosterone, when you tell them their feelings matter more than results, you don't raise men, you raise emotional hostages. Compare Lewis and Clark. 5,000 miles on foot, horse and keelboat, through freezing rivers, hostile tribes, starvation, scurvy, and grizzly bears. No GPS, no trauma counselor, no safe space, just a mission. And they completed it. Now try to get the average Western man to walk 6 miles without whining about plantar fasciitis or chronic fatigue. He'll text his therapist halfway through. He'll demand a comfort break. He'll blame his shoes. He's not physically broken. He's morally broken. The male will has been neutered by a feminist socialist complex that worships victimhood and pathologizes endurance. PE classes replaced with emotional check-ins. Boys with energy, diagnosed with ADHD and drugged into submission. Sports teams, girls put in charge regardless of skill because equity trumps excellence. This isn't education. It's ideological warfare on masculinity. I know a man, a programmer, decent guy, tried hard who got dumped after a 12-hour hike with his girlfriend. Not because he was slow, not because he lacked fitness, but because he complained, he whined about the heat. He asked every 20 minutes if they were almost there. He needed constant reassurance. Am I doing okay? Do you still like me? He wasn't testing his body, he was seeking emotional validation like a toddler. And she, A woman with an animal-level instinct for strength smelled the weakness. She didn't care about his 401 kilo or his job title. She cared that he couldn't walk through discomfort without begging for a pacifier. She dumped him. And good, because women aren't fooled by resumes or bank accounts. They are wired evolutionarily to detect male weakness. That's why BPD and histrionic traits flourish in women. They're not accidents. They're strategies to dominate weak men. A strong man doesn't seek permission. He doesn't whine. He moves. And if he falls, he gets up, because his will is greater than pain. Schopenhauer was right. The world is will and representation. Most men are trapped in representation, appearances, feelings, social media metrics. But the man who endures does so because his will is real. He walks, not because he feels like it, but because he must. The Spartans knew this. The agoge wasn't about fitness, it was about forging unbreakable will. Boys were starved, beaten, sent into the wilderness with nothing. They were taught to suffer in silence, to kill a fox hidden under their cloak rather than cry out. Contrast that with today's schools, where boys are scolded for playing war, where tag is banned for being too aggressive, where a kid gets suspended for drawing a gun in art class. This isn't safety, it's spiritual castration. And it's deliberate. Feminists don't fear male violence, they fear male autonomy. A man who can suffer silently, who can move without approval, who can persist, is a man who cannot be controlled. Now a new movement rises, the red pill hike. No women, no whining, 20, 30, even 50 miles in a day. Men posting GPS tracks like battle scars. One group in Colorado completed a 100-mile trek in under 48 hours, no support crew, just grit and protein bars. They weren't doing it for clout. They were doing it to remember who they are, to test the male frame in physical trial, to walk until the ego breaks and the will takes over. This is not recreation, this is reclamation. Because every mile walked in silence, every blister ignored, every urge to quit resisted, is a middle finger to the feminist Marxist machine that tried to turn men into compliant, sensitive, weeping drones. You want to know the truth about women. They don't want sensitivity. They don't want emotional availability. They want strength. And when they don't get it, they manipulate, they cheat, they destroy. Because weakness triggers their evolutionary instincts to seek better genes. The divorce rate, 50%. Cuckoldry. Studies suggest 10 to 30% of children are not fathered by the man who thinks he's the dad. Family courts stack the deck against men. 90% of custody goes to mothers, even in abuse cases. And men, they commit 90% of suicides. Why? Because they've been told their purpose is to serve, not to be. But the body knows the truth. The body remembers the hunt. And when a man moves, truly moves, under load, in silence without complaint, he reconnects with the ancient will that built civilizations. So walk. Walk until your mind shuts up. Walk until only the will remains. And when you do, you'll understand the crucible of motion doesn't test your legs, it tests your soul. I once watched a man, college educated, employed, clean record, break down sobbing when his wife texted, "We need to talk," before filing for divorce. He lost 60% of his income overnight, his dog, his home, and weekend access to his kids. The court didn't ask if he was a good father. They asked if he earned more. That's when it hit me. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. And the architects, not clueless bureaucrats, but ideologues who spent a century plotting the nuclear family's demolition. Brick by ideological brick, the collapse of the nuclear family, Marxism's fifth column in the home. 70% of all juveniles in state custody come from fatherless homes. That's not a statistic, it's a goddamn indictment. The Department of Justice didn't bury this fact, they confirmed it. And yet, while men vanish from homes like ghosts fleeing daylight, the state rolls in with its clipboard, its social workers, its mandated reporting forms, and its sanctimonious shrill about protecting the children. Protecting from what? From fathers who pay child support, coach Little League, and teach their sons how to change a tire without crying. No. The state doesn't protect children, it seizes them. It doesn't support families, it replaces them. The mommy state, as I call it, is not a metaphor. It's a bureaucracy built on the ruins of the nuclear family, staffed by women with psychology degrees and a grievance against men so deep it borders on the pathological. They don't want to heal families. They want to domesticate boys, criminalize fathers, and make dependency the new normal. Every mandated reporter who calls CPS because a 10-year-old walks home from school alone. Every school counselor who pathologizes boyish energy as ADHD. Every social worker who treats a father's discipline as abuse. These are the foot soldiers of the matriarchal surveillance state. They don't serve children. They serve ideology, and the ideology is this: men are dangerous, families are oppressive, and the state must be the new father, even if that father wears yoga pants and calls itself trauma-informed. Let's talk about Sweden, the promised land of genderless preschools, where boys are gently encouraged to reimagine their anatomy while girls are taught that biology is a social construct whispered by the patriarchy. Yes, you heard that right. In Stockholm, they've built a laboratory of psychological castration, funded by your tax dollars, where teachers hand out dolls with no genitals and tell children that everyone can be anything. But here's the punchline. These schools don't produce enlightened, gender-fluid geniuses. They produce confused, anxious kids who grow up unable to form stable relationships. Because when you erase nature, you don't liberate people, you lobotomize them. The Swedes didn't invent this lunacy, they imported it. Rooted in the Frankfurt School, watered by feminist dogma, and fertilized by state funding. This is Marxism's fifth column in the home, quiet, smiling, pastel-colored, and utterly deadly. And the goal isn't equality, it's destruction. Destroy the father, destroy the family, destroy the future. Then when the rubble settles, the state steps in with a clipboard and a grant proposal. I once saw a video of a Swedish teacher asking a 5-year-old boy what he wanted to be when he grew up. He said a firefighter. She smiled and said, or maybe a nurse. He blinked. He didn't know what to do with that. Neither do I. When did nurturing become a cage? When did choice mean racing nature until nothing's left but a trembling, genderless blob begging for validation? Follow the money and the ideology to their root. Frederick Engels, Karl Marx's closest ally, and a fierce critic of family structures. In The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State, Engels didn't merely analyze capitalism. He launched a direct attack on the nuclear family. His reasoning? The family, particularly in its traditional form, stood as a competing authority. It shaped individuals who owed allegiance to blood and lineage, not the state. It instilled discipline, loyalty, order, principles that resist top-down control. Engels labeled the family the world's first despotism, ignoring its role as humanity's earliest site of learning, moral training, and protection. He pushed for replacing it with collective upbringing, government oversight of parenting, and the dismantling of personal ownership. Does this vision ring a bell? It should. Each time a court removes a father's custody for refusing to fund a dishonest spouse, each time classrooms assert that dual mother households equal mother-father pairs, but not dual fathers oddly. Each time a man is ridiculed for seeking marriage and children, Engels' influence looms. His plan is unfolding now, and the primary tool, today's divorce system, a rigged arena where men face automatic suspicion, their earnings taken, children turned into leverage, and financial ruin used as proof of guilt. One acquaintance of mine earned well over 6 figures, saved diligently, purchased a home, then, post-divorce, lost 70% of his income to support payments and was forced into a tiny apartment. His offense? Being a man in a framework built to penalize him for it. But Engels had an heir, Shulamith Firestone, the acid-tongued prophetess of feminist transhumanism. In The Dialectic of Sex, she didn't just want equality, she wanted to abolish biology itself. Pregnancy is the tapeworm of the species, she wrote. Her solution? Artificial wombs, computer-controlled reproduction, and the complete eradication of the nuclear family. And who's funding this nightmare today? Silicon Valley's transhumanists, the same tech oligarchs who think they can upload their consciousness to the cloud while their daughters attend genderless preschools in Sweden. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they're not just building rockets and metaverses, They're funding the final stage of the family's collapse, the replacement of natural reproduction with artificial gestation. Why? Because a child born in a lab, raised by algorithms and owned by the state, is infinitely more controllable than one raised by a father who teaches him to shoot a rifle and stand his ground. Firestone dreamed of a world where men are obsolete. Silicon Valley is building it. And the irony, these same men who claim to champion innovation and freedom would rather fund the extinction of the family than confront the reality that women left unchecked destroy what they cannot control. And where stands the church amidst this chaos, prostrate in the filth, bowing before the ideology of cultural Marxism? Mainline Protestant groups now champion divine motherhood and rail against toxic masculinity with the intensity of a heretic burning in the square. Clergy who once cited St. Paul now echo radical feminist slogans. They no longer guide men to lead. They train them to repent for being male. They do not uphold marriage. They twist it beyond recognition until it holds no meaning. I once sat through a sermon where the minister declared, "God has no gender. God is a nurturing mother." I nearly left. Nearly. But then it struck me, this isn't faith. This is defeat. The church didn't fade from relevance. It stepped down. By failing to uphold the created order, by yielding to feminist demands, by muffling male voices in the name of inclusion, it has turned into another branch of the nanny state. And what's the price? Eternal souls. Actual men, bewildered boys, shattered homes all forsaken because the church values approval over truth. When a woman earns more than her husband, divorce rates increase by 75%. Let that register not due to male insecurity, but because biological realities are fixed. The traditional family structure wasn't imposed by ideology. It emerged through time because it functions. Men lead in providing and defending. Women excel in caring and connecting. Reverse these roles and instability follows. The wife may grow controlling, the husband withdrawn, bitterness builds, and children absorb tension instead of safety. This isn't hatred toward women, it's recognition of innate differences. Women aren't flawed, they're distinct. Disrupting this balance doesn't yield fairness. It creates disorder. I know a man whose wife earned double his income. She began referring to him as my little house husband in social settings. He smiled at first, then the smiles faded, then all communication stopped. Today he's separated, financially strained, and rarely sees his children. Was he inadequate? No, he was truthful. He acknowledged he couldn't sustain a role that clashed with his core identity. And for that honesty, he was broken by a culture that elevates women who dismiss men and penalizes men who stay true to themselves. So what's the result? A marriage strike. 60% of men under 40 say they'd rather stay single than risk financial and emotional annihilation in divorce court. This isn't fear, it's rational self-defense. Why sign a contract where you're the designated loser? Why pledge loyalty to a woman who could, with one accusation, seize your children, your home, and your future? Men aren't refusing marriage because they hate women. They're refusing it because the institution has been weaponized against them. Feminists scream about the manosphere as if it's a cult. No, it's a refugee camp. It's where men go when they've been burned, betrayed, and bankrupted by a system that claims to protect families while systematically destroying them. And the nuclear family? Far from being a patriarchal invention, it emerged as a fortress against tribalism and state tyranny. In medieval Europe, the family was the unit of resistance, the place where faith was taught, property was protected, and boys became men. Now the state, in alliance with feminist ideology, is tearing down that fortress brick by brick, and what rises in its place? Not freedom, not equality. A bureaucratic matriarchy where every child is a subject, every father a suspect, and every man a potential abuser until proven otherwise. So wake up. Stop pretending that progress means destroying what works. The nuclear family isn't oppressive. It's the last bulwark against the totalizing state, and if we lose it, we lose everything. Because no society survives when fathers are exiled, boys are medicated, and the state becomes the only parent left standing. I've seen it how the myth of female fragility has spread like a virus, turning emotion into a bargaining chip and pain into a collectible. while genuine resilience is not just overlooked but actively shamed. From childhood, I watched my father repair the roof during a storm while my mother's friend phoned to see how we were because her cat seemed a bit unsettled. That moment taught me civilizations don't fall from natural disasters or conflict or disease. They crumble when we reward panic as nobility and cast quiet endurance as dangerous. Now boys are pushed to dissect every emotion while girls learn to wield theirs like blades. But here's a truth buried under decades of noise. The male spirit isn't flawed for not weeping on demand. It's refined. The calm in the storm, measuring a man by his emotional gravitas. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. Rousseau whined. But the real chains are forged not by kings or capitalists, but by the hysterical shriek of women demanding emotional servitude while collapsing at the slightest discomfort. I watched a female nurse during the pandemic post "I'm not okay" on Instagram between shifts, while my friend, a male ER doctor, worked 36-hour stretches without food, sleep, or complaint later tested and found to have zero PTSD. Not a whisper, not a breakdown, not a single performative tear. He didn't need a participation trophy for surviving reality. He was reality. While she demanded validation for her emotional labor, a feminist euphemism for emotional extortion, he simply did his duty. That's the difference. Women perform suffering, men endure it. And the modern world has mistaken the theater for truth. You want to know the lie at the heart of the emotional intelligence scam. It's this: women don't have higher emotional intelligence. They have higher emotional manipulation intelligence. They've turned emotional chaos into a tool, demanding men perform endless psychological labor, listening to repetitive breakdowns, absorbing blame games, playing counselor while they intensify the drama like someone pouring lighter fluid on a fire. It's not connection, it's crisis management under duress. And men who go along with this aren't sensitive. They're fueling a broken pattern meant to keep them weak and reactive. The numbers don't lie. Men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide than women, yet get help at less than 20% the rate. That isn't a failure of outreach, it's proof of quiet endurance. But our female-centered culture treats emotional control like a disease, punishing a man for holding it together, while celebrating a woman who cries at a commercial for pet treats as authentically emotional ridiculous. The real truth? Steadiness isn't about lacking hurt, it's about not letting hurt run the show. Jordan Peterson said, "Stand up straight with your shoulders back," and feminists mocked it as posture advice. But they missed the metaphysical bombshell. That stance is the axis of order in a chaotic universe. It's not about your spine, it's about your soul. When the world burns, who do you want beside you? The woman who posts this anxiety is so real while eating chocolate on the couch, or the man who, like Marcus Aurelius in his war tent, writes philosophy amid bloodshed because someone has to hold the line. The Stoics didn't go to therapy, they went to battle and returned wiser. They understood that suffering is not a bug in the system, but the system itself. And the measure of a man isn't how much he feels, but how much truth he can endure without buckling. Schopenhauer knew this. The man who can bear the greatest suffering is the greatest man. That's not poetry, it's evolutionary logic. Nature doesn't reward the squeaky wheel, it rewards the anvil. Think of the CEO who cracked under stress. Female naturally, she shouted, walked out, and left the business in shambles. In contrast, the male CFO handled the crisis with quiet resolve, refinanced the obligations, worked out terms with lenders, preserved 200 positions, and never made a public fuss. No media statement, no "I'm struggling" update, no guilt tripping, just action. This isn't an exception. It's standard behavior for genuine men. Yet our society overlooks it because it contradicts the feminist claim that men lack emotional depth. Wrong men possess emotional mastery. We don't require outbursts to show we're human. We don't need group therapy to stay grounded. And we definitely don't need women turning emotional chaos into a sport while expecting us to keep every piece from crashing down. The myth of emotional labor says women carry the weight of feelings. The reality, men bear the emotional burden so civilization doesn't collapse. We are the quiet stabilizers, taking on the fallout so others can thrive in peace. And let's be brutally honest, the modern woman doesn't want emotional equality. She wants emotional dominance. She wants a man who will panic when she panics, cry when she cries, and collapse when she collapses. That's not partnership, that's codependency theater. I saw a viral video of a woman filming her boyfriend during a car accident. The car is smoking, glass everywhere, and his first words, "Are you hurt? Call 911. I'll get the flares." No hysteria, no blame, no drama, just action. That's the frame, that's leadership. Meanwhile, her first instinct was to record, not to assess danger, not to help, but to perform. And that's the panic test. When crisis hits, does he freeze, flee, or lead? The answer separates men from boys and men from women, because in the storm, the calm isn't weakness, it's power. And the man who remains steady isn't cold, he's grounded. He's the rock in the flood, the compass in the storm. The one who doesn't need a therapist to tell him he's okay, because he already knows. I've watched men kneel under the weight of lies, while women and their ideological priests crown chaos as justice. So let me be the one to say it plainly. The world doesn't hate weak men, it hates strong ones. Because strength refuses the script. Every time a man stands, protects, leads, without permission, he shatters the gynocentric illusion that safety comes from submission and virtue is measured in tears. That's why the Kyle Rittenhouse case isn't about one boy with a gun. It's about the moment society chose to crucify a protector while worshipping the arsonist. And this isn't an anomaly. It's policy, it's pattern, it's the stigma shield in action. Smear the victor to preserve the victimocracy. The stigmatized protector, how society punishes male virtue. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Nietzsche said that wise man, dead now, probably spinning in his grave, watching modern men weep into their soy lattes, while women burn cities and men are called terrorists for stopping them. Look at Kyle Rittenhouse, 17 years old, carrying an AR-15, not because he's a white supremacist, as CNN shrieked like a hysterical harpy, but because he was trying to protect a storefront from looters in Kenosha, while the police either watched or participated. Two men attacked him with deadly force, one with a pistol, another with a skateboard that hit like a brick to the head. He defended himself, shot two, killed none in intent, and yet the entire feminist leftist media complex spent months trying to hang him, paint him as a monster, while Antifa arsonists who burned down entire blocks were described in headlines as misguided youth or angry protesters. A 17-year-old boy protecting property is a fascist. A 30-year-old man in a black mask setting a hospital on fire is expressing frustration. That's not journalism. That's spiritual warfare waged by a culture that hates masculinity so deeply it would rather see civilization collapse than allow a young man to stand and defend. Let's talk about sacrifice, real sacrifice, not the performative kind women post on Instagram while sipping kale smoothies. 94% of workplace fatalities are men. 94. That's not a typo. Men die in mines, on oil rigs, in construction trenches, fighting fires, repairing power lines in hurricanes, while OSHA runs zero campaigns about toxic masculinity killing men, because male death is not a scandal. It's an expectation. It's the tax we pay for being allowed to exist. Meanwhile, women run wellness seminars on emotional safety while men are buried in unmarked graves for doing the dirty, dangerous work that keeps society from descending into Mad Max. No one mourns the crane operator who fell in Houston last year. No think pieces in the Atlantic. No viral hashtags. But if a woman stubs her toe at a yoga retreat, it's a national conversation about self-care. We've inverted virtue. Protection is now pathology, provision is oppression, and leadership is toxic. But here's the truth. Civilization is not built by committees of crying women demanding safe spaces. It's built by men with calloused hands and scarred knuckles who say, "I'll take the risk," and then do. History laughs at cowards and eats its protectors when they're no longer needed. Rome didn't fall because of barbarians at the gate. It fell because it mocked its legionnaires, taxed them into poverty, let women dominate the courts, and replaced martial virtue with decadent theater and sexual deviancy. The same happened to Byzantium, to Weimar Germany, to every empire that confused weakness for compassion and femininity for progress. They all began the same way, by calling their warriors violent, patriarchal, outdated, and once the lions were caged, the hyenas moved in. Today we cage our protectors with false accusations. A man intervenes in a domestic violence situation, sees a woman being beaten in a parking lot, steps in, restrains the attacker, and he gets arrested because the woman, still under the abuser's spell, claims he was the aggressor. This isn't rare, it's protocol. Police are trained to assume the man is guilty first, especially if he's strong, decisive, unapologetic. The system doesn't fear female violence, it rewards it. It fears male virtue because it cannot control it. Jordan Peterson once said, "You have to be dangerous to be kind." That sentence should be carved into every courthouse, every school, every church. A man who cannot protect is not kind, he is prey. A man who cannot say no is not peaceful, he is enslaved. Civilization does not run on empathy circles and pronoun parades. It runs on men who can hold the line, who can face down chaos with a rifle, a law book, or a clenched fist. But we've neutered the male spirit, replaced it with a eunuch theology that calls submission equality. The church, once the fortress of moral order, now preaches feminist drivel. Priests who dare speak of male headship are labeled abusive, toxic, patriarchal, while female pastors stand in pulpits declaring that God is a woman and men are obsolete. Christianity has been lobotomized, turned into a therapy cult for emotionally stunted women and beta males who think salvation comes through participation trophies. And the media. The media is a propaganda arm of the gynocentric death cult. Every school shooter profile follows the same script. Loner, played video games, had no girlfriend, never fatherless, pumped full of Ritalin, bullied by girls, rejected by every girl he ever liked, raised by a single mother who called him a failure. Why? Because the real story is too damning, it exposes the lie. The truth is that fatherless boys with no rites of passage, no mentors, no sense of purpose, snap when the world offers them nothing but shame and silence. But we'd rather blame guns and games than admit that women have been raising a generation of broken boys while demanding devotion from men who no longer exist. Here's the trap they've built. Act strong, protect, provide. You're toxic, fail to act, you're a deadbeat. There is no winning. The goal is not reform, it's annihilation of the male archetype. And why? Because a man who leads, protects, and fathers is a threat to the gynocracy. He cannot be manipulated, bribed, or shamed easily, so they smear him. This is my theory, the stigma shield. Men who perform true virtue, protecting, providing, leading, are smeared not because they fail, but because they succeed. Success threatens the entire feminist narrative that men are useless, dangerous, or obsolete. So every hero is recast as a villain. The firefighter is performing toxic masculinity. The soldier is a warmonger. The father who disciplines his kids is abusive. The system doesn't reward male virtue, it punishes it. And when men finally break, when they go silent, withdraw, or rage, then they're blamed for not participating. Wake up. The world is not falling apart because men are too strong. It's falling apart because men have been convinced to kneel. You were born to lead, to protect, to build, not to apologize for existing. They don't hate you because you're flawed. They hate you because you're necessary. And nothing terrifies a parasite more than the host realizing its own power. You think the world is broken? It's not broken, it's bewitched. The same fools who burned witches at Salem now run diversity trainings at your workplace, and they've cast a spell so thick that men genuflect before women who wouldn't last 5 minutes in a Spartan agauge. I don't care if you've never hiked 10 miles or faced down a mob. What matters is that you now see. You see the cage, you see the wires, you see how they medicated your sons, bankrupted your fathers, pathologized your silence, and called your courage toxic, so they could sell you emotional kale while stealing your future. The nuclear family wasn't destroyed by accident, it was executed by Engels with a pen and Firestone with a manifesto. now revived in Sweden's genderless toilets and Silicon Valley's baby tanks. And you're supposed to apologize for wanting a wife who can cook, not a corporate drone who needs a therapist to pee. Let's be brutally honest. Women aren't oppressed, they're overpowered. They have the law, the courts, the media, the schools, the pulpit, and the right to abort 62 million babies since Roe v. Wade, and still they scream patriarchy. Family courts award custody to mothers 80% of the time, even when they're abusive. While fathers are financially castrated and monitored like criminals for daring to exist near their own children. Cuckoldry. DNA tests reveal up to 30% of men are raising another man's child, and the woman who did it gets praised on daytime TV for her honesty, while the man who trusted her is called controlling. This isn't justice. This is spiritual necromancy, resurrecting lies as virtues and burying truth in a mass grave of performative tears. But you've walked the red pill trail now. You've seen the man who doesn't panic when the car flips, the father who works 2 jobs while being called absent, the soldier arrested for protecting a store while looters got TikTok fame. You know the truth. Civilization is not built by the sensitive, it's built by the steadfast. Marcus Aurelius didn't cry into a journal. He ruled an empire in a war zone. The ER doctor didn't post "I'm not okay." He saved lives while others filmed their breakdowns. And you're not here to be seen. You're here to endure, to lead, to be, so go. Test yourself on a mountain. Test the women in your life by their silence in crisis. Reject the cult of female fragility. Laugh at the man who calls stoicism repressed trauma. He's just afraid of his own shadow. The West wasn't built by participation trophies. It was built by men who walked until their feet bled and kept walking. Now you know, now you see, and seeing, you are free. And now the sponsored book introduction, Women's True Nature, Borderline Personality Disorder, describes the female psyche, BPD, histrionic, stunted moral development. I did not set out to write a book about women, psychology, and the collapse of civilization. I was raised to believe in fairness, to treat people with respect, to assume the best. I believed in love, partnership, family. I believed women were different, not defective. I believed men were strong, but that strength was meant to serve, protect, and build. I believed in logic, in dialogue, in reason. I believed in the West. Then reality hit me like a hammer. I spent years watching smart, capable men get crushed by women who claimed to love them, only to turn on them the moment stability arrived. I watched men give everything, time, money, emotional labor, only to be discarded for someone louder, more chaotic, more emotionally intense. I saw men punished for setting boundaries, for speaking truth, for refusing to play the game, and I saw women rewarded socially, legally, culturally for doing the opposite of what responsibility demands. Not all women, but enough. And not randomly. There was a pattern. It wasn't just personal relationships. It was everywhere. Politics, media, law, education. The same emotional logic, reactive, impulsive, tribal, victim-centered, was spreading like a virus. I began to notice the same traits in public figures, in activists, in policymakers: identity obsession, black and white thinking, fear of abandonment, frantic efforts to avoid real accountability, constant drama, shifting blame, emotional blackmail, traits I had seen in clinical literature under one name, borderline personality disorder, and another, histrionic personality disorder, but these weren't just pathologies anymore. They were becoming the norm. I dug deeper. I studied psychology, evolutionary biology, philosophy, sociology, political theory. I read the DSM. I studied attachment theory. I analyzed feminist ideology, critical theory, postmodernism, and woke dogma, not as political movements, but as psychological syndromes. And the connection became undeniable. The core emotional architecture of the modern left mirrors the cognitive and affective structure of BPD and HPD. It's not metaphor, it's mechanism. The refusal to accept limits, the splitting of the world into pure victims and pure villains, the inability to tolerate ambiguity, the demand for constant reassurance, the rage when reality contradicts fantasy. The weaponization of emotion as a substitute for argument. Women are not evil. But female psychology, shaped by evolution, biology, and culture, is heavily weighted toward emotional intensity, social validation, and relational control. When motherhood is delayed, denied, or repressed, those drives don't vanish. They distort, they hijack institutions. They create a culture where truth is hate, men are predators, and feelings are facts. This is not feminism. This is pathology scaled to civilization size. This book is for men who are tired of being gaslit, tired of being told they are toxic for wanting peace, tired of being shamed for protecting their boundaries, their finances, their sanity. It's for men who still believe in logic, in beauty, in truth, in duty, but feel like they're losing the world. It's for men who want to understand not just what's happening, but why, and what to do about it. If you are a woman who believes in empowerment through emotional chaos, if you think men should endlessly accommodate your feelings, if you see victimhood as strength, if you think truth should be sacrificed for comfort, put this book down. Do not read further. This is not for you. This book will not validate your narrative. It will dismantle it. You will not like it. You will call it hateful. You will call it dangerous. You will be wrong, but you still shouldn't read it. Go watch a Netflix drama, scroll TikTok, join a support group, do anything else. This book is not your safe space. This book maps the psychological roots of cultural decay. It shows how the BPD spectrum has become normalized in women, not as illness, but as identity. How the drama triangle, victim, rescuer, persecutor, runs relationships, workplaces, governments. How gossip networks function as shadow justice systems. How leftism isn't an ideology, it's a psychological disorder dressed in moral language. How abortion, far from being a personal choice, is a symptom of deeper moral arrest. How women en masse have rejected adult moral development and dragged society down with them. You will learn how to recognize these patterns in real time, how to avoid being sucked into drama, how to protect your mind, your emotions, your future, how to stop being a rescuer, how to see through manipulation, how to value truth over emotional comfort. This is not theory, this is survival. The West is dying, not from external enemies, from internal rot, from a failure to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, especially female nature. We are not supposed to talk about this. We are supposed to smile, comply, apologize, pay, and disappear. But the cost is too high. Men are depressed, isolated, medicated, dying young, boys are failing, families are broken, truth is silenced, beauty is mocked, duty is laughed at, all in the name of progress. This book tells the truth, not because it's easy, because it's necessary. If you are a man who still wants to think, to build, to love properly, to father children, to live with dignity, read this book. If you are serious, if you're willing to face reality, if you are ready to stop being manipulated by emotional hunger disguised as love, this book is your weapon. Women's True Nature, Borderline Personality Disorder, describes the female psyche, BPD, Histrionic, Stunted Moral Development, written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now, links in description.